few weeks ago, I listened to The Rest is History's excellent pair of podcast episodes on Mozart and Beethoven. And it mashed a little button in me that I also have mashed basically every time I go to the orchestra. Why do I bother composing? Why in the world do I bother? I will never be as good as this. Not if I spent all day every day composing, would I be as good as this? Now, this is a foolish way of thinking about it. As well to say no one should bother writing a novel if they're not going to be the next Austen or Tolkien, or to say that you shouldn't bother painting because you won't be the next Rembrandt or the next Van Gogh. By definition, the greatest artists in the world are few, and most of us will certainly not be among their number. Why is this kind of pernicious comparison so easy for us? Some of it is just ego, right? All of us want to be great. I remember as a young man dreaming, shower dreams, of studying physics in college and being the one to unify quantum mechanics and general relativity. For that matter, I've dreamed for years and years about my music being heard and loved, about it becoming part of the repertoire, about it being good enough that people go back to it over and over again. And that last line that I said there suggests the tension that we all experience here when it comes to ambition. It's not bad, it's not wrong to desire to make something great, to make something lovely, to desire that the lovely thing we've made be appreciated. It's not even a bad thing per se to strive to make something so great and so good that people want to listen to it or appreciate it or read it for generations. We all want those parts of ourselves to endure. We have a longing, you might say, for eternity. But the stories of Mozart and Beethoven, especially as the good fellows over at The Rest is History told it, reminded me of something. They tell us something about those dreams, and that is that their narratives stand into the years we crossed into musical modernity, the years when genius was first in the air, when the term fans or fanatics first actually came into existence, the years when we first hallowed the work of the artist in a new way, the years when we started to think that it was a shame that Bach spent all of his life as an employee, rather than a wonder at what he made because of the constraints of his profession and his vocation. The reality is that the pressures created by those transitions, where art is something hallowed and great now, have never left us. The fact that orchestra concerts, I love them, but they're special occasions. They're things we go to once a month. Maybe twice if we're lucky, right? They're signals that something about the role music takes in our lives has changed. The role that music takes in our culture has changed. On the one hand, we've turned it into something glorious. We celebrate it as, well, with Mozart and Beethoven, the greatest music of the ages, and it is. But on the other hand, it's something that makes it easy to feel that if our music can't stand alongside the greats, that it's not worth hearing, that it's maybe not even worth taking the time to write in the first place. And I reject that thought. I reject it every time it hits me. But it niggles at me. It's not without cause. Because after all, if my music isn't good enough to stand alongside the greats, maybe not to be one of the greats, but at least to stand up alongside them, how will it get played? This is the other half of that story, the ambition to make art that is actually good, that is good enough to be played and enjoyed by others. After all, otherwise, what's the point? It's music. That ambition points at something, because yes, it brings me joy to do the work of writing it, but that joy is partly proleptic. It's anticipatory and hopeful and looking out there at things ahead of me. It's grounded, in no small part, in the hope that others will enjoy this thing into which I have poured so much of my time and energy, so many hours of my life. The first Saturday of January, 2025, just after wrapping up breakfast, I had the urge to walk over to my piano and sketch an idea for a little musical theme that was Well, on the moment the urge took me, I didn't have it in mind, actually. I wasn't thinking of a tune. I wasn't really consciously thinking of anything. But the moment I opened the keyboard of our piano and sat down and put my fingers on the keys, a melody popped out, fully formed, quick as could be, genuinely immediately. So I played it, and I decided that I liked it, and played it again a couple more times to fix it in my mind, and then I bolted into the other room, grabbed my iPad, sat down with it, opened up Dorico, and jotted it all down. So now I have the idea. This is the experience that we name inspiration, at least what I think of as inspiration. And inspiration, when it hits us, is not actually sufficient to create a great piece of music in its own right, or whatever other kind of art. I think most great art has a dash of that in it, but it's not enough. And what caught my attention as I reflected on the process was, yes, a little about that nature of inspiration, but also the process and where that idea came from. Some part of me did have that idea. I had that desire to go to the piano just then. Couldn't have told you why. Some part of me knew that I had that musical idea, even though I couldn't have hummed it for you. It was subconscious. Maybe it was pre-conscious. It isn't always that way. Sometimes a musical idea will be there ringing in my mind, and then when I try to write it out, piano and paper or in Dorico with a MIDI keyboard, I struggle. In fact, I'm rarely successful at fully translating from my mind into notation in those attempts. It's a matter of skill. I need to get better at it. But when I do, I feel good. It's different from these moments of inexplicable, inarticulable urge to go work something out on the piano. Not every idea I have that way is a keeper, but I've learned to pay attention and give it at least a chance, because our minds are strange. They're wonderful, but they really are quite strange if you think about it. So whether it's those moments or whether it's the 20 to 30 minute stretches I take every day before starting my job, sitting there in the dark at 6:30 a.m., working on a symphony, working on a new symphonic idea I had, they don't have the malaise that I get listening to one of the greats in a recording or at the orchestra. They're just good. Whether it's the hard work or whether it's moments of inspiration, they're good. And this is the first part of the answer I would offer about that question of why do we keep making the work? Because the work itself is really actually good in its own right. The joy of inspiration, the challenge of asking, is this anything, as the kids say? And then deciding whether to keep the idea and iterate on it and to make something of something that might or might not be anything. Or, to let it go, to move on to the next idea, no matter how inspired it felt in the moment. That kind of work is good in itself. But it is incomplete. But it is good. And so that points me to another part of the answer. And that is, why do any of us make art in the first place? Why do I compose? All those ideas about ambition, about wanting to be known and to endure. Pause. Put that aside for a minute. Ponder, instead, the last toddler that you met. Did he wonder, why dance? Why color this page? Did she wonder, why sing? Why should I make up a story for mommy and daddy? No, of course not. Life, in all of its tragedy and all of its sorrow, in all of its frankly, brokenness and weeping, its trudging drudgery, perhaps above all, its relentless competition and comparison with the people around us. It teaches us, if we don't fight it every step of the way, that there must be a reason to make art, and that the reason must be good enough, or else it isn't worth it. That's wrong. We make art because we are, to the depths of us, begetters of beauty, what Tolkien called sub-creators. And ambition does not have to be an enemy of the joy of creation that we all have from the moment we first are able to create anything. It doesn't have to be an enemy of that beauty begetting, any more than studying astrophysics needs to undercut the wonder of the night sky. To the contrary, well-tuned ambition can sustain and undergird the hard work that is actually required for real excellence. Yes, you go listen to that episode and you'll hear about the talent that Mozart and Beethoven had, but also the work. So to be an adult as an artist, to be mature as an artist, just is, I think, to find a way to marry the instinctive love of creating for the joy of it that every toddler has with the pursuit of excellence. Not to let the pursuit of excellence dim the joy, not also to fail to pursue excellence. And that marriage will look different for each of us. It must. We have our own gifts with their own limits. I am not as great as Mozart or Beethoven, again, even if I spent all day every day. And not every one of us who is an artist first. I'm not. I write software first. That's how I pay the bills. So faithfulness to our other vocations may demand of us that we make less of our art, both less in quantity and less in importance than we might like. But I think we can keep the ambition, and without letting the joy be dimmed by the ambition. I hope those helps are thoughtful to you. If you liked hearing this, I encourage you to subscribe here or to subscribe to my newsletter linked below. And I'll be back hopefully next month with another one of these with next month's newsletter as a video essay. Tell me what you think in the notes, in the comments below. Thanks.